Life rarely rewards the easy path. True growth, success, and resilience come from facing the challenges we often try to avoid. In Do the Hard Thing, Tyler Andrew reveals why the toughest choices shape our character, build discipline, and open the doors to opportunities that comfort never will. This book is not about shortcuts. It's about embracing the hard path that transforms you into the person you are meant to become. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Comfort. Most people spend their lives chasing comfort. It seems harmless, even logical. Why would anyone deliberately choose difficulty when an easier path is available? Yet the pursuit of comfort becomes a silent trap. Comfort whispers that you have earned a break, that tomorrow is a better day to begin, that the challenge is too big for someone like you. Slowly, without realizing it, you begin to design your life around avoiding struggle. You build routines that protect you from discomfort rather than push you toward growth. The author insists that this illusion of comfort is perhaps the most dangerous lie of modern life. True comfort, the kind that lasts, is never found by hiding from difficulty but by walking directly into it. When you avoid challenges, you temporarily shield yourself from pain, but you also deny yourself the joy of achievement, the pride of mastery, and the resilience forged only through adversity. Think about the muscles in your body. Without resistance, they weaken. If you never push them beyond their limits, they shrink. Your mind, your character, and your courage work the same way. A life engineered around ease becomes a life where you slowly decay while convincing yourself that everything is fine. The illusion is powerful because comfort feels good in the moment, but it silently steals your future strength. The chapter points out that most people are not failing because they lack talent, intelligence, or opportunity. They fail because they constantly choose what is easy. They underestimate how deadly small, comfortable decisions can be over time. 5 minutes of distraction, skipping one difficult task, postponing one uncomfortable conversation, each seems insignificant, but together they form a pattern of avoidance. Years later, you realize you never became who you were capable of being. The author urges readers to question their daily choices. Are you choosing what is easy or what is necessary? Are you feeding your future self or simply protecting your present comfort? Growth is not found in the easy path. It is hidden in the hard things you are tempted to avoid. The illusion of comfort will rob you if you let it. Only by deliberately walking into discomfort do you build the life you truly desire. Chapter 2. The Price of Avoidance. Avoidance feels safe. It tricks the brain into thinking you have solved a problem simply because you postponed it. But every avoided task, every ignored challenge, carries a cost. The author compares it to debt. When you borrow money, the balance grows with interest. When you avoid difficult actions, the burden grows with emotional and psychological interest. What feels like a relief today becomes a heavier weight tomorrow. Take, for example, the student who avoids studying for an exam. In the moment, he gains the pleasure of rest, scrolling on his phone, maybe hanging out with friends. But the cost is anxiety that builds quietly in his chest. The night before the test, the panic arrives multiplied. He pays far more in stress than the price of simply doing the hard work earlier. Avoidance is not free, it compounds. In life, the hard thing you avoid becomes the wall that limits your future. That difficult conversation you refuse to have with your partner festers into resentment. That workout you skip slowly turns into poor health. That bold move in your career you delay transforms into years of regret. The price of avoidance is always greater than the discomfort of facing the challenge directly. The chapter emphasizes that avoiding the hard path not only harms your future, but also weakens your identity. Every time you choose avoidance, you reinforce the belief that you are not capable of handling difficulty. You train your mind to expect escape routes rather than resilience. Over years, this erodes confidence. People begin to describe themselves as unlucky, anxious, or unmotivated, but in truth, they have simply practiced avoidance for so long that it has become their identity. The author argues that the only cure is exposure, deliberately stepping into the very thing you fear or resist. Avoidance grows stronger in the shadows, action weakens it under the light. He encourages readers to think of discomfort as an investment. Just like lifting weights, tears muscle fibers so they can rebuild stronger. Facing difficult tasks may hurt in the moment, but pays dividends in growth. Chapter 3. The Fear Barrier. Fear is the invisible wall that separates where you are from where you want to be. It does not announce itself with warning signs. It appears as hesitation, excuses, or the quiet voice in your mind that says, "Not yet." Most people never recognize that fear, not failure, is their true enemy. Fear thrives on imagination. It magnifies possible pain, rejection, or embarrassment, while blinding you to the growth, respect, and success on the other side. The author explained that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Those who succeed are not fearless. They are simply unwilling to let fear dictate the story of their lives. Breaking the fear barrier requires small, deliberate acts of defiance. Each time you walk into fear instead of away from it, you build a reference point that your brain cannot ignore. I was afraid, but I survived. Over time, fear loses its authority. What once looked impossible becomes normal. The wall dissolves and you realize it was never real in the first place. Chapter 4. Discipline is freedom. To the undisciplined, discipline feels like chains. To those who practice it, discipline is pure freedom. The undisciplined person is controlled by impulses, sleep, laziness, distraction, cravings. The disciplined person controls their own impulses and therefore controls their future. This chapter argues that freedom is never the result of avoiding hard things. It is the reward of doing them consistently. The freedom to live without financial worry comes only from disciplined work and saving. The freedom of good health comes only from disciplined exercise and diet. The freedom to create, travel, or enjoy life comes only from the discipline of planning and sacrifice. Discipline is like building armor. At first it is heavy and uncomfortable, but as you wear it daily, it shapes you, protects you, and allows you to move through life with confidence. Without it, life will crush you under the weight of random desires and distractions. With it, you can carry dreams that others would find impossible. Chapter 5. The Value of Struggle. Modern culture teaches us to avoid struggle, but struggle is the birthplace of strength. The author insists that struggle is not something to escape, it is something to embrace. Every achievement worth having was purchased through discomfort, exhaustion, and resistance. Consider a seed. It must break apart in darkness before it can push toward light. Consider a butterfly. It must wrestle against the cocoon until its wings are strong enough to fly. Struggle is not the enemy, it is the process of transformation. People who live without struggle live without growth. Their lives may appear comfortable on the surface, but inside they remain fragile. Meanwhile, those who deliberately engage in struggle become unshakable. They are prepared for storms because storms are nothing new to them. The lesson is clear: do not run from struggle. Invite it. It is the weight that builds your character's muscle. Chapter 6. Failure as a teacher. Most people fear failure as if it were the end of the story, but failure, properly understood, is not a dead end. It is a classroom. Every failure carries a lesson, and those who succeed are simply those who collect and apply enough lessons. The author reminds us that every great innovator, athlete, or leader failed countless times before achieving mastery. Thomas Edison tested over 1,000 prototypes before inventing the light bulb. Each failure was not wasted. It was data, refinement, and preparation. Failure only becomes permanent when you stop moving. If you rise after falling, you are not defeated, you are educated. The true failure is not falling, but refusing to rise again. Chapter 7. The weight of responsibility. Responsibility is heavy. It demands sacrifice, maturity, and the willingness to carry more than just your own needs. Many avoid it, preferring the illusion of freedom without accountability. But the truth is reversed. Those who reject responsibility remain children, forever dependent on others. The author argues that real adulthood begins not at age, but at the moment you accept responsibility for your life, your career, your relationships, your health, your happiness. None of these belong to someone else. The moment you say, "It's my fault and it's my job to fix it," you step into true power. Responsibility is the weight that makes you strong. At first, it feels unbearable, but as you carry it daily, your back straightens, your legs grow firm, and your character becomes reliable. People trust those who accept responsibility because they know such people can be counted on when storms come. If you want respect, if you want leadership, if you want influence, you must carry responsibility. It is heavy, yes, but it is the only weight worth bearing. Chapter 8. The battle with self. The hardest enemy you will ever face is not the critic, the competitor, or the circumstances outside you. It is yourself. Procrastination, laziness, self-doubt, excuses. These are the assassins living within your own mind. This chapter presents the sobering truth. Every external challenge is manageable if you first win the internal battle. But most people spend their lives blaming outside forces without realizing they are defeated by their own habits and mindset. Winning the battle with self begins with brutal honesty. You must admit your weaknesses without excuse. You must expose your patterns of self-sabotage and confront them daily. The author encourages readers to treat themselves as both commander and soldier. You must give yourself orders and also obey them. Self-mastery is not achieved in a day. It is forged in the daily decision to discipline your body, focus your mind, and direct your energy. Once you conquer yourself, no external challenge can conquer you. Chapter 9. The gift of pain. Pain is often seen as an enemy, something to be avoided at all costs, but pain is not the destroyer. It is the messenger. Pain tells you where you are weak, where you must grow, and where life is trying to reshape you. Those who avoid pain remain fragile, never discovering what they are capable of. Those who embrace it unlock strength they never imagined. The author explains that physical pain strengthens the body, emotional pain deepens empathy, and mental pain expands resilience. Pain is proof that you are alive and fighting. When you push through it, you discover that pain is not the limit but the doorway. Greatness always costs something, and pain is simply the currency. Do not fear it, use it. Chapter 10. The power of consistency. Talent is nothing without consistency. Motivation may start your journey, but consistency finishes it. Most people quit not because they are incapable, but because they refuse to persist when progress feels invisible. Consistency is the force that compounds small efforts into massive results. The author compares it to drops of water wearing away stone. Each day's effort may look insignificant, but over months and years, it shapes mountains. Consistency requires routine, patience, and faith that unseen effort is never wasted. The disciplined person who keeps showing up day after day outpaces the talented person who moves only when inspired. Success belongs not to the intense, but to the consistent. Chapter 11. The call to sacrifice. Every dream demands a price. The question is not whether you are capable, but whether you are willing to sacrifice for it. Sacrifice is the bridge between desire and reality. You cannot have everything. You must choose what matters most and give up what does not. The author emphasizes that sacrifice is not loss, but investment. When you give up comfort for growth, you are not losing comfort, you are purchasing strength. When you give up short-term pleasure for long-term purpose, you are not deprived, you are buying freedom. The world hides this truth, offering shortcuts and illusions of easy success, but every lasting achievement stands on sacrifice. If you are unwilling to pay the price, you cannot possess the prize. Chapter 12. Building mental toughness. Mental toughness is not about never breaking, it is about refusing to stay broken. It is the ability to keep moving forward when everything in you screams to stop. The author describes mental toughness as a muscle trained through discomfort. Each time you endure hardship without quitting, you strengthen your capacity for the next storm. Mental toughness requires perspective. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you learn to ask, "What is this teaching me?" Instead of collapsing under stress, you channel it into fuel. The tough mind is not numb, but focused. It feels the pressure, yet continues anyway. Life will test you with uncertainty, rejection, fatigue, and loss. But the mentally tough person does not surrender. They adapt, they push, they rise. Mental toughness is built in the shadows long before victory is visible. It is the invisible armor that makes extraordinary achievements possible. Chapter 13. The discipline of focus. Focus is the weapon that cuts through the noise of life. In a world overflowing with distractions, most people waste their energy on what is urgent but meaningless instead of what is important and lasting. Focus is not simply about paying attention, it is about deciding what matters most and eliminating everything else. The author emphasizes that greatness is not achieved by doing everything. It is achieved by doing the right things with relentless commitment. Focus requires saying no more often than yes. It requires protecting your time from endless digital interruptions, shallow conversations, and trivial pursuits. The mind is like a lens. When scattered, it produces nothing but blur, but when concentrated, it burns through steel. The disciplined person guards their focus as fiercely as their health, because once attention is stolen, potential dies. Focus demands planning, prioritization, and the courage to disappoint others in order to stay true to your mission. Without focus, effort leaks into 1,000 directions and nothing meaningful is accomplished. With focus, ordinary actions transform into extraordinary results. Chapter 14. The strength of patience. Patience is one of the hardest virtues in a culture addicted to speed. We are taught to expect instant rewards, instant answers, instant gratification. But anything of true value takes time to grow. A tree does not bear fruit the moment it is planted, and a person does not achieve mastery after a single effort. Patience is the ability to endure the delay without giving up, to trust the process even when results are invisible. The author explains that impatience destroys potential because it convinces you to quit just before the breakthrough arrives. Patience is not weakness, it is power under control. It is the quiet strength that allows you to continue working day after day, even when nothing seems to be happening. The disciplined person understands that time is not the enemy, but the ally. Every hour of effort is like a seed planted. It may not show life today, but underground, roots are forming. Patience teaches you to stop measuring progress by immediate outcomes and start measuring it by faithfulness. Those who are patient reap the rewards that the impatient will never see. Chapter 15. The courage to fail. Forward. Failure is the most feared teacher in life, yet it is also the most faithful. No one likes the sting of falling short, but failure is not the opposite of success. It is the pathway to it. Every person who achieved greatness has a graveyard of failures behind them. The difference is that they refused to let those failures define them. The author stresses that failure is not final unless you quit. When you fail forward, you treat mistakes as lessons, not verdicts. You analyze what went wrong, adjust, and try again with greater wisdom. This courage to fail forward separates the dreamers from the doers. Most people allow fear of failure to paralyze them into inaction. They wait for perfect certainty, which never comes, and so they waste their lives in hesitation. But those who embrace failure as part of growth move faster, learn deeper, and rise stronger. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Every failure is a stepping stone if you refuse to stop walking. The path to mastery is paved with missteps, but each misstep makes your stride more sure. To fear failure is to fear life itself, but to embrace it is to claim unstoppable progress. Chapter 16. Relentless Prioritization. Time is the only non-renewable resource you will ever own. You can make more money, repair most relationships, and recover from many mistakes, but time passes irretrievably. The central truth of high achievement is not busyness, it is ruthless prioritization. To do the hard thing consistently requires the discipline to choose fewer things, and to choose them with greater ferocity. This chapter reframes productivity away from multitasking and toward the art of subtraction. The author begins by diagnosing the problem. Modern life sprinkles our attention across 1,000 trivialities under the flattering banner of opportunity. Meetings multiply, notifications demand reaction, and every new, shiny project seduces us into scattering effort. The result is a life full of motion but poor in meaningful results. Relentless prioritization demands a different posture. Decide deliberately what matters most in an extended horizon, 3 years, 5 years, a decade, and then align daily rituals to those priorities. The technique is simple to describe and brutally hard to implement. First, adopt a single dominant project for each season of life. A work aim, a personal transformation, or a relationship focus. The dominant project receives the lion's share of creative energy and scheduling protection. Everything else is filtered through the question, does this serve the dominant project? If not, the default answer should be no. The author introduces a practical framework called the Time Dominance Grid. On this grid, you map obligations and opportunities by impact and urgency. Tasks high in impact and low in urgency win. Tasks high in urgency but low in impact are deprioritized or delegated. The grid forces you to see that many important-looking tasks are actually low return in the long run. The chapter gives examples. An entrepreneur who spent half his week answering routine emails instead of designing product prototypes. A parent who volunteered for committees that eroded family time. An athlete who split training modalities and never developed elite capacity. Each had the illusion of productivity while sacrificing depth. Next, the chapter provides rituals to make prioritization non-negotiable. The most critical ritual is the weekly integrity review. Every Sunday, list the 3 most important outcomes for the coming week and block time for them first. Protect those blocks like sacred appointments. The second ritual is the 2-minute no, a practiced, polite refusal that prevents the accumulation of small, distracting commitments. The third ritual is the quarterly purge. Eliminate commitments that haven't yielded meaningful returns during the last quarter. These rituals are small but compound into a life shaped by intention rather than distraction. Relentless prioritization also demands clarity on the trade-offs. Saying yes to one thing is saying no to others. The chapter normalizes the discomfort that comes with rejecting pleasant but shallow options. The author counsels readers to develop a short, compassionate refusal script, a sentence or two that explains the boundary and offers a modest alternative when appropriate. Finally, the chapter ties prioritization to identity. When you protect your highest projects, you're voting for the person you want to become. Each guarded hour is a vote cast for excellence. Over time, the disciplined selection of focus areas compounds into irreversible advantage. The discipline of choosing less, choosing better, and protecting those choices is the core mechanism by which ordinary days yield extraordinary lives. Chapter 17. Building a resilient support system. No one who consistently does the hard thing goes it alone. The myth of the solitary hero is comforting but false. Durability in adversity grows from networks, not only for resources and opportunities, but for psychological ballast. This chapter details how to design and cultivate a support ecosystem that increases your odds of sustainable toughness. The author begins by distinguishing 3 essential roles within any resilient network: the mirror, the tether, and the launchpad. The mirror provides honest reflection, mentors and peers who will tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. The tether provides accountability and companionship, those who hold you to routines and help you recover when you slip. The launchpad opens opportunities, sponsors and connectors who use influence to create leverage for your work. Building these relationships is not transactional, it is reciprocal and long-term. The first practical principle is intentional exposure. Put yourself in repeated arenas where the right people gather: conferences, high-quality mastermind groups, workshops, and curated online communities. Mere attendance is insufficient. You must create value in those rooms by asking good questions, sharing honest progress updates, and giving help before you ask for it. The chapter warns against 2 common errors: the network of convenience, people you meet only when you need them, and the echo chamber, people who simply validate you. Instead, opt for a mixed network that includes upwardly aspirational contacts and lateral peers who test you. The second principle is vulnerability with boundaries. Authentic relationships require candid sharing, but oversharing early with weak ties is risky. The author prescribes a calibrated vulnerability model. Start with small disclosures that invite reciprocation and increase depth as trust accrues. Trust compounds more reliably when accompanied by consistent follow-through. Promises kept are the currency of relationships. The third principle is maintenance systems. Use low-friction rituals, monthly check-ins, a curated newsletter to your inner circle, or a shared digital board with progress notes to keep relationships warm without devolving into performative busyness. Chapter 18. The long game, compounding. Small wins into lifelong mastery. Doing hard things is rarely about a single heroic event. It's about impatience married to persistence, an orientation to the long game where small, consistent wins compound into profound capability. This chapter synthesizes the book's lessons into a philosophy of time and accumulation. The author argues that mastery is not mystical but mathematical. Small improvements, practiced daily and refined with feedback, produce exponential growth over years. He introduces the formula of compounding effort: small daily action times consistent, feedback times adaptive variation equals long-term mastery. Each term matters. Small daily action ensures consistent input, feedback prevents wasted repetition and accelerates learning, adaptive variation prevents plateau by introducing new stressors and contexts. The chapter offers concrete practices to harness compounding. First, the micro-progress log. Record 1 measurable improvement each day, reps added, words written, minutes of focused work, and review monthly to see the curve of progress. Second, the feedback loop schedule. Deliberately schedule short feedback sessions, peer review, coach critique, or customer interviews to refine technique. Third, the intervention week every quarter, where you intentionally increase intensity or vary constraints to force adaptation. The author emphasizes the psychological architecture needed to play the long game. You must cultivate patience, reframe boredom as progress, and build identity around process rather than episodic success. Chapter 19. Leading by example and multiplying impact. Doing the hard thing becomes exponentially more powerful when you lead others to do it with you. There is a difference between personal grit and institutional grit. Personal grit shapes one life. Institutional grit reshapes cultures, companies, teams, and communities. This chapter examines how you translate private discipline into public leadership, so your endurance becomes contagious rather than lonely. Leadership by example is the simplest and most persuasive form of influence. When people see someone willingly accept the same burdens they ask of others, resistance falls away. Words carry theory. Embodied sacrifice transmits conviction. The author begins with a clear observation. Orders without ownership breed cynicism. A leader who demands 60-hour weeks while privileging their calendar with ease destroys trust. A leader who takes the first shift, sits in the late meeting, calls the hard client, and accepts blame before praise creates moral authority. Moral authority is not charisma, it is credibility earned in the currency of shared hardship. To lead by example, you must first be honest about the cost you are imposing. Ask, am I asking others to do what I refuse to do? If the answer is yes, change the request or change the example. The chapter provides practical rituals for embodied leadership. Start meetings with "what I did this week," statements that highlight sacrifices and learning, brief, specific, and humble. Share not victories alone, but failures and repair plans. Make vulnerability a tool for accountability. Here's where we fell short, and here's how I will fix it. These rituals normalize the hard work rather than fetishize it. The author then addresses the design of scalable practice environments where hard work is practiced together. Rituals, role rotations, paired accountability, and shared metrics convert solitary discipline into group norms. For example, a software team that publicly logs daily micro-commitments, tests written, bugs fixed, reviews completed, converts private toil into social momentum. The public ledger reduces cheating, increases modest competition, and celebrates incremental wins. Another lever is apprenticeship. Instead of demanding excellence, create structured pathways that make excellence teachable. The apprenticeship frame removes mystique. Skills become observable and transferable. Teach through demonstration, then through guided practice, then through independent responsibility. The chapter gives templates for coaching conversations, how to provide critique that saves dignity and accelerates growth, how to assign stretch tasks that are neither punitive nor trivial, and how to scaffold skill with immediate feedback. A crucial responsibility of leaders is to protect the margin for recovery. High-intensity work must be interleaved with recovery rituals, debriefs, rest protocols, and scheduled sabbaticals, because sustainable performance is not sprint after sprint, it is sustainable tempo over years. The author warns against moralizing exhaustion. Hero culture that venerates burnout is destructive. True leaders enforce rest as a strategic resource. Finally, multiplying impact requires stewardship. Measure not only productivity but development. Track how many people you have helped become more capable and independent. The greatest legacy of doing the hard thing is not how many trophies you won, but how many people you taught to carry weight. Leadership by example, when paired with systems for teaching and care, converts personal courage into cultural competence. Over time, the organization adopts a muscle memory for difficulty. The hard path becomes familiar because someone first modeled the route. Chapter 20. The Ethical Edge, Doing Hard Things the Right Way. Hard choices are not morally neutral. The ability to do difficult things can be used for noble ends or corrosive ones. This final chapter wrestles with the ethics of arduous living, how to ensure that the strength you build serves other people rather than destroys them. The author begins with a warning: competence without conscience becomes a danger. History provides many examples of people who were relentless and capable, yet pursued destructive aims. Doing the hard thing must be yoked to a guiding purpose that orients means to ends. First, clarify your telos, your North Star purpose that answers the question, for whom and for what do I endure? When your discipline is anchored in a service larger than ego, family flourishing, community renewal, creating beauty, lifting others, then your sacrifices gain moral ballast. The chapter prescribes 3 ethical guardrails. The first is respect for dignity. Hard demands should not humiliate, they should develop. Challenge people without grinding them into submission. The second is transparency. Make costs and expectations explicit before asking others to commit. Hidden costs erode trust and convert shared discipline into resentment. The third is reciprocity. If you ask others to sacrifice, you must be willing to bear at least as much, if not more. These rules create reciprocity economies rather than predatory ones. The chapter then explores the alignment of ambition and humility. Ambition is necessary to move mountains. Humility ensures you don't mistake your map for the territory. Check your motives regularly. Are you enduring hardship to become better for contribution or to validate yourself? The author gives practical exercises for moral auditing, periodic reviews where you ask hard questions about impact. Who benefits most from this effort? Who bears the cost? Are there unintended harms? A just course based on answers. Another section examines the ethics of sacrifice for loved ones. Choosing hard work may bring prosperity, but absent emotional presence, it can hollow relationships. Ethical hard work balances achievement with availability, ensuring that the people who supported you also share in the fruits. The chapter closes with the idea of legacy as a moral measure. Ask how your choices will be narrated in the lives of others. Doing the hard thing well means building things that outlast you and improve lives. Strength that serves becomes stewardship. Strength that dominates becomes tyranny. Choose to forge a life where your endurance enlarges human possibility rather than merely your own dominance.